The first moment you are born, you take a breath. Well, unless you had a water birth, then you kind of just swam around a little bit. But as soon as your head broke the surface of the water, you took a breath. Breathing, obviously, is so important. It gives us oxygen, lets us use that oxygen, and then gets rid of the carbon dioxide. It's not complicated, but we do it all day long, and we don't even have to think about it. In fact, why give it any thought? Because then you would just be surviving. But we want to thrive, and a way of marvelousness is about thriving. And the first thing I'm going to talk about here is conscious breathing. To me, it's the most important. Well, actually, I say that about every daily habit. But I think conscious breathing covers all the areas. It covers the physical, all right? So getting some oxygen and getting rid of carbon dioxide. And even, I like to do more solid breathing, so it gets in more oxygen and outputs the carbon dioxide. Like the cyclists, where they call it priming. You see a hill coming up, you start breathing harder so you're ready to tackle the hill. Instead of waiting till the hill comes, and then you start breathing harder to get more oxygen, that's just surviving. But if you want to thrive, we respond, we look ahead. So, breathing is physical. Breathing is emotional. My gosh, when you get fear, breathe hard to get more oxygen in so your body can react. When you're sad, you breathe lower because you need to rest and take hold of everything. When you're awe, when you have this magnificent awe of what's happening around you, you get lifted and your breathing becomes deep. That's the beautiful spot. So it's emotional, it's physical, it's also mental. Because the other part of breathing and the exercise that I do with conscious breathing is conscious not breathing. So it's not just big deep breaths in and big deep breaths out. It's also holding your breath. And that part, it pushes your resilience and gets you right and that part, it helps your mental fortitude to hold your breath as long as you can. And then finally, it's spiritual. When you're thinking about breathing, you're in the now. You're right now, and that's what you're thinking about. Nothing else exists when you focus on your breathing. So breathing is so important. And from a rev head point of view, because I love motorbikes, what was the first thing I did when I bought a new motorbike? And all the rev heads out there know what you do. You get rid of the exhaust pipe because that restricts the air outtake, which restricts the air intake. You put on a big exhaust pipe so the air goes out of it so you get more power. More fuel doesn't give you more power. Better fuel doesn't necessarily give you more power. What gives you more power is more air. So conscious breathing, and if we breathe hard, it'll give us more air. And then if you really want to go crazy, you put a turbo, a supercharger on your motorbike, and bang, you even get more air and more power. But anyway, it's not just about power, it's also about finding your inner peace. And we can all do with a little bit of that. Remember, self-esteem is the answer, and breathing helps this. Now, there's so many different breathing techniques. Yoga, a lot of the yoga techniques are big, long, deep breath in, all the way to the top, and hold it, and then a deep breath out. There's the nostril thing, and there's the, nostril out. I'm not an expert in any of these breathing techniques. I've played around with them, and what I'm going to do is the breathing technique I love most. It may not be for you, because remember, there's no one right way of doing anything, but just as long as you do some sort of conscious breathing. Now, why do most people, yoga and a lot of techniques, breathe? When they do their breathing techniques, they do it cross-legged, sitting like this. Some go into the full-on, the lotus position. Just be comfortable. I know when I first started sitting cross-legged, I couldn't do it for very long, but after a while you get used to it. So it is the best way. Now, it's not the only way. course, there's other ways of doing it. You can lie down. Now, some free divers, they do it where you lie down and relax. Because when you get to the breath holding part, the more relaxed you are, the longer you can hold your breath. It's not so much about the big breaths in, it's more about the lowering the heart rate. And your breathing can control that. Because it is part of the autonomic system. And it's the one part we can really consciously control. So that parasympathetic and the sympathetic, we can control with our breathing. Now, as I say, if you can't do it cross-legged, you can sit up in a chair. I would sit down as low on the ground as possible, because once you do some really big, deep breathing exercises, I've heard of people blacking out. It's never happened to me, I've never seen it, but I've heard of, like, you breathe too much and it just makes you all dizzy. And that's kind of the cool part, but too dizzy and you go out. So the idea is to be close to the ground. Now, the other thing is, if you do lie down, if you choose that's the most comfortable spot for me, and I've done that where I lie down, but what happens to me is I just go, I fall asleep. Now, as important as sleeping is, because it is very important, we'll talk about that later, not while you're conscious breathing. You want to keep awake. So if you sit up, it keeps you alert. You keep your back straight because it opens up your lungs. That's what I find also when you're lying down, there's this pressure on your lungs. When you've got no pressure, so neither leaning back on something, you're just totally free, it gives your lungs more room to move. And because I was one of these people, like, I'm not doing it the way they do it, I'm going to do it differently. I'm just going to sit like this, do all that. I found the more you look like that traditional yoga pose of up here, because you turn your arms out, it opens up your chest, it opens up your lungs, it gives you a better chance to breathe. And how do you breathe? You know, when I was a Cub Scout, there was a test on how to breathe. There was a multiple choice. It says, do you breathe, what's the proper way of breathing? Do you breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth? Or do you breathe in through the mouth and out through the nose? And I remember as a bit of an insecure little kid at Cub Scouts, I kind of went, I breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Must be wrong. So I ticked in through the mouth and out through the nose. Obviously that's wrong. But why we breathe in through the nose is because the nose cavity has got hairs in it, it filters, it gets the right humidity for it to enter our lungs to get the best out of the air that we're breathing. So in through the nose. If you can't, if your nose is blocked, just suck it in through the mouth. The important thing is to get air in. But this is what we want to strive for. We want to strive for this position. We want to strive with our palms up, arms out, so it just opens it up. And sit up tall. Sometimes I still slouch, you know, breathing, I just want to get down and slouch. But you know, you find it's better, it keeps you just a bit more alert and a bit more conscious of your breathing. Now, as I said, there's two parts of the breathing. There's the breathing part and the non-breathing part. And there's a bunch of people around the world that, you know, really push this sort of technique. I love it. It's what spoke to me the most. The power breathing part really spoke to me because, well, I'm an ex-athlete. And I just went, wow, why didn't I know about this when I was up at high altitude when you really need the oxygen, and use this technique? But I'm learning it now and I'm teaching you guys about it. So when we breathe, as I said, in through the nose and breathe in low. If we breathe up high and go, you start triggering that fear response, and then suddenly your heart rate goes up. And, or, you know, for my wife, she hates the big, deep breathing thing. She does it, she likes a nice, slower breathing. But yeah, that fear response of going up here, we want to keep the breath low. Feel our stomach. You don't want to feel your shoulders going up or like that. You want to just keep shoulders relaxed and down and breathe in the belly. We all know this, we've heard this, right? I'm not telling you anything different. Now, the other thing I do is I close my eyes. Because if I close my eyes, it just takes out any distractions. I still have the sound around me to warm me, because I like doing this on the beach a lot, and dogs are coming running. Sometimes they come up and lick me while I'm breathing. I try to keep my focus. Not always, sometimes I pat them. But eyes closed to cut out just that little bit of distraction, be able to calm yourself a bit more. And what I do this is the technique. I'm just showing you one technique, and this is the technique I use, is 33 breaths. Why I pick 33? I don't know. People talk about the minute and a half. That's why I do it around 33 breaths, get me to that. And I start off relatively quick and I slow my breathing down as I get to my 33rd breath and go. So take deep breath into the stomach and then I let it fall out. I don't push it out, I just let it fall out. And then get into a circular motion. And then I start moving a bit and getting it breathing and like that. And I feel giddy and I love the giddiness. It's getting a little bit high. Slowly slow down. So then when you get to your 33rd breath, you breathe it in. Maybe suck in a little bit more. And hold it. Now you don't hold it in here, you don't go, because if you do that, that also triggers that fear response. Your heart rate goes up, you won't be able to hold your breath very long. You just kind of cut it off here at your throat and hold it. And then just relax. And then let yourself just fall into the way you're sitting. And then, and sometimes I have to remind myself to sit up straight, but if you fall down into it like this a little bit, it doesn't matter. And hold it. Now what's a good way is focusing in. I love to really just go inside what's happening in my body, keeping my eyes closed. You feel this tingle all over the body. You feel your head tingling, sometimes your ears, your eyeballs. I kind of go through the senses. So instead of like a body scan, I do a sense scan. And the body scanning technique, a lot of yoga use this, where you just go through your whole body and recognize each part. It keeps you very present, it keeps you very now. If thoughts wander off to something, that's right, bring them back, as they always say. And just enjoy the ride of holding your breath and that calmness. And just holding it. Now you'll start at probably about 30, 40 seconds into it. If this is the first time you've done this sort of thing, you start to panic a little bit. You start to go, oh, I'm holding my breath. Really? Can I hold my breath this long? Can I? It's all right. You just move back onto the body scanning, enjoying the sensation, the tingles. And then as you start to really feeling your breath, and I think it's called the mammalian response. Who cares? I don't get hooked up on all the proper terminology, but where your body starts fighting for its breath. Now the body doesn't respond to needing more oxygen, it's wanting to get rid of CO2. Now the idea of holding your breath, what it does is it improves your transfer of oxygen out of your blood system and the CO2 into the blood system, getting it out. So the longer you can hold your breath and the more you practice this, the better it is at more oxygenating your body. And the more you oxygenate your body, the more alkalized the body becomes, and we've heard that before. If we haven't, the more alkalized the body, the healthier the body is. The better the body is at healing and looking after yourself. And that's what I'm talking about. This is, that's why it's part of the self-esteem, to look after ourselves. So conscious breathing. So I've told you about my exercise, and you hold it and just keep going. And then when it does that, and when you really, really feel the need, just try and count to 10, just to push it that little bit longer. And then when you really need to breathe, then you do your recovery breaths. So some people talk about doing one big breath in and pushing it. Some free divers do the kind of the recovery breath thing where it's 3. I like to do the 3. Sometimes I do 1 and kind of push it. And sometimes what I do, so you need to take a breath, you go, really get as much air and push it out. Just gently push it and feel it push. I like to push up into my head, and you feel it pushing up into your head, and you feel your eyeballs come out a little bit and your earring come out. And then let out. That's doing it 1. Or sometimes what I'll do if I've got a bit of an injury, like I ripped my groin muscle doing some twisting on the trampoline. And so I'll kind of push it down into the groin muscle, get the oxygen, just pushing it into there. I got a broken shoulder here, and sometimes I just think about trying it to straighten out. So I push the air into it. Don't worry, it's not straight yet, but maybe over time it will. So just push it out. So after 33 breaths, you do one whole big breath, and then I do 3 recovery breaths. So and what you can do with those recovery breaths, you could either push down low, then push to the center, and then push up. And then you get out and you feel so uplifted. You can get up and do anything after that. Now breathing, I like to do it in the morning. I do usually just a quick session, so that one round of that in the morning. Because of my kids, and I get them to bed around 7 o'clock at night, then I'll do it again. It's our quiet down, so we kind of do meditation with the kids, and I'll do 3 rounds of that, and then just sit for 5 minutes focusing on my breath, just slow breathing in, breathing out. And that's the other thing about conscious breathing, it is meditation. And it doesn't have to be like this. I even do it driving along in the car. Sometimes feeling a little bit tired and driving. I know you should pull over and stuff like that, but you're just not far from home. I just take a couple of 3 deep breaths. Now be careful, because sometimes even with 3 breaths like that, you can get a little bit giddy in the head. Obviously, if you're operating heavy machinery, don't do it. But 1 big deep breath, that 1 conscious breathing, that could be enough. As I said, I do some sort of conscious breathing daily. A lot of the times twice a day, in the morning and at night. But it's whatever suits you. Sitting on a tram, going to the office. Just take 3 deep breaths, or just focus on your breathing and focusing on a point on that tram opposite you. So that is the number 1 daily habit. Actually, they're all the number 1 daily habit. This is but the first one, part of the physical part, but how it incorporates the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. Conscious breathing. You've got to do it. And you'll love it. Till next time, keep the spirit.